Welcome to Forensic Friday,
where we examine the intersection of true crime, psychology, and the heart of being human in the middle of it all. Yeah, so if we're thinking about what's the biggest animal you could take in a fight, what do you think? I said your cat, but I don't think you can take her.
Yes, I did say my cat. I probably can't take her.
No.
She's spicy. She bit the crap out of my arm over the weekend. Granted, we had 5 dogs in our house from Friday to Monday morning.
Oh my gosh.
So she was spicy. Okay, largest animal I could take in a fight.
You're looking around like you're gonna find one.
Well, I was gonna say I could trigger a bunch of men and say a bear.
Okay, you know what's funny about that? I was literally gonna say a bear.
Gosh.
A black bear, not a grizzly bear.
Oh yeah, grizzlies are different.
I think I could take a black bear. But also, I've actually been dying to talk to you about this whole man versus bear thing. We have not talked about this
I
yet,
know.
which is wild because I've seen it everywhere. And 100% bear.
What do you mean 100% bear? You could take a bear?
I believe I could.
Yes, I believe.
Also, I would rather run into a bear than a strange man.
Yes, because
I know what to expect from a bear. Maybe I know what to expect from a man in some cases.
Well, not a strange man, not someone that you don't know, that you have no idea what they're capable of, and also
Absolutely.
why would you be wandering around the woods? Like, that's just weird.
And here's the thing, it's not about dogging on men. Natalie and I love men. We appreciate men. We are married to 2 very kind men. We really appreciate men. Here's the thing. Men will never know what it's like to be in a forest with a bear or a man. They don't know what that's like. They don't know what that choice would even look like.
Right.
Right? Because they'd much rather see a woman in a forest than a bear.
Yeah.
Unless they're actively hunting it.
But yeah, if I see a random man in the forest, I have no idea what to expect. With a bear, I know what to expect. I gotta wave my arms and look crazy person. If I do that with a man, I don't know what they're gonna do.
No, 100%. And also, I would rather be mauled by a bear than have some of the things that a man might do to me happen.
That's fair.
Right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't think it's that men don't want to understand this. I think some of them are genuinely confused, and it's just there's an experience gap. If you're listening, ask the women in your life, and you might be really surprised what they say. There's a reason there's been a universal answer.
Well, so part of it, I think why this is becoming such a hot topic and kind of polarized is because I don't know if a lot of men fully understand the perspective thing. It's not that we say, the message isn't all men are scary. That's not the
message. And the message isn't I'd rather be in a woods with a bear than a man.
Right.
What it is if it's a strange man or a bear,
I would rather
like my chances with the bear at this point.
I would rather run into a bear because I know what to expect from a bear. I know it's either gonna, if I flail around and yell, it'll run away.
Yep.
If it's a grizzly bear, I'm just screwed.
Right, play dead.
Play dead.
And cry.
Right. And so it's the expectation piece, but it's so polarized because some men are thinking women are just saying men are scary, and that's not the message.
Well, no, and I can understand why they feel that way.
Yeah.
I really can. I also don't have a lot of patience for it because my opinion is not based on man hating or politics or anything else. It is literally based on lived experience.
Yes.
I have had scary things happen with strange men.
Yeah, same.
Yes. And so that's the part that I think is missing is empathy and compassion for that part of a woman's experience that men just can't relate to. It doesn't mean they're bad. They're just, you don't know what you don't know. I don't know what it's like to be a man either. So when men tell us their experiences, or if my husband shares something with me about something that's hard about being a man, I'm going to hear him out.
Of course.
Because it's valid. Like, that's valid. But this one, bear. I was literally thinking that that's the animal that I could maybe take.
Yeah.
The biggest animal I could take would be a black bear, not a brown bear, black bear. And not if their babies were around.
Yes, if baby.
But yes, if my babies are around.
Right.
If my son's around, then
Yes.
bye.
Yes. I still think I have a fair chance with my cat.
I think you would have a better chance
With a bear.
with a mountain lion than your cat in some ways. I don't think Aspen would stop gnawing on your bones, to be honest. She's wild. I live in fear of you asking me to like go check on her because I would do that because I love you so much, but I would be genuinely afraid.
Oh my gosh. Well, that's funny because so many of my friends who live closer who can come check on her pretty easily are terrified of her.
Oh, she's terrifying. She's absolutely, I love her. I would do a lot. I would pay someone a lot of money to go take care of that cat for you.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to go risk my life and go run up on Aspen.
Oh my gosh. I can't remember what I was doing the other day. I was like petting her face or something or doing something. And I was like, oh, to Preston, I was like, look what she's letting me do. And he was like, she would let you do just about anything. But a stranger walks into the home and she's like freaked out. I'm
wondering, didn't you tell me the other day that she like steals the neighbor cat's toys and stuff?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
She's a big bully.
She does steal. She has stolen the neighbor's cat's toys. And I found 4.
I think that is one of the best things I've ever heard.
Oh my gosh. I was like, where? I called my husband. I was like, did you buy her new toys? Because he would never, like, I buy her toys. He would never buy toys.
No.
And he's like,
she's just a boss lady.
Yeah. He was like, no. And so I sent him a picture. And every day I found a new one for like 4 days.
You know, she found the weakest cat on the block. And she just keeps going back. And that poor owner is like, oh my gosh, where'd your toy go? And they buy another one. And Aspen comes around the corner, takes the toy.
Well, and she sometimes comes home. So we have 2 gray cats that live next to us. And sometimes she comes home with gray fur in her claws.
That poor cat.
I know.
Everything was fine until Aspen moved in.
I know. All the cats around here get along. And then she moved in and she's like, this is my block, B.
Upset the ecosystem for sure.
Anyway.
Wow. Everybody knows what to expect tonight because we are doing OJ Part 2.
Part 2.
We were talking a little bit earlier about what we're going to focus on tonight. And I think we're going to do a tiny bit more about the trial, right?
Yes. Not a ton more about the original trial.
And then the civil case.
The civil case. The book.
The book is fascinating. We're going to get into the book.
And his life after the original trial.
Yes. And the robbery case that sent him to prison. But we did get a question that somebody wrote in on that I wanted to talk about a little bit. Because I think sometimes Natalie and I, because we do this work every day, we don't always think about what people are wondering who aren't doing this work every day. Mm-hmm. So that's a blind spot that we have. So please send us questions because that's super helpful.
Yeah.
And we were asked, why would a woman like Nicole Brown Simpson go back? Why would they recant? Why do they stay in this situation and go back again and again and again? And so I thought we could spend a couple minutes talking about that.
Yeah. I think, well, part of it is pattern, right? And we can do we can go at this a lot of different ways. So sometimes it can be a family of origin. Right. So if you were raised in an abusive home or a chaotic home, you're going to be more attracted to that type of chaos.
It'll feel familiar.
And oftentimes it's a roller coaster for the victims, right? Because there's love bombing that happens and it's kind of addictive to stay in. There's love bombing that happens. So there's high highs and low lows. And so you bank on the highs in order to get through the lows. right?
Yep.
And sometimes people, again, potentially based on family of origin, if that's what you know, if you were raised in, an abusive or power and control dynamic, that might be what you think is a family or love.
Right.
And some of it is, I mean, with OJ's situation, and we'll get into some of this with his life after the original case, because he had a pretty lengthy girlfriend afterwards.
Ooh, I don't know about that. I'm excited to hear about that.
Yeah. Age can also be a big component, right? So if someone is much younger, there can be a dynamic that can feel more of like a parental situation, which is, again, some power and control dynamics. So I think with Nicole and OJ, she was younger than him.
Yeah.
He basically was the shiny thing for her who was going to give her the world. And
Yeah.
that's addictive. And it looked really nice for her. And they had 2 kids together. And so
Yeah.
it's made it harder to leave.
Remember when they got married, she brought love into our home. Like, it doesn't start typically with violence right on day one.
Right.
It gradually evolves into a pattern of abusive behavior.
Yeah.
And having worked with victims over the years too, I've worked with some who just had years and years and years of abuse, sometimes in multiple relationships.
Yeah.
They genuinely, we're going to get into gaslighting at some point in the future. That's going to be really important.
Mm-hmm.
But victims actually sometimes land in a place of not knowing what's real or not.
Yeah.
Not understanding if they really do deserve it because maybe they've been told over and over again. We know that OJ, after the night that she said she thought he was going to kill her, that he turned around and told everybody that she beat him up and you should have seen my bruises
Yeah.
and, that kind of stuff. So when you deal with that all the time, eventually you start to wonder if your perspective is even accurate.
Well, and when victims do leave, so oftentimes it takes them, like, I think the statistics say 8 times for a victim to actually permanently leave.
That sounds right. 7, 8, something like that.
But they oftentimes go back because if we reflect on the cycle of abuse, right, there is a honeymoon period. Then we go, I'm going to just quickly say it, right? Honeymoon period, tension building, explosion / fight, exit, and then reconciliation. And sometimes it's not necessarily an exit. I know sometimes that's in there and sometimes it's not, but when we are in that cycle and then a victim maybe leaves the first time, usually the abuser or perpetrator is going to try to be on their best behavior to try to get them back.
Yeah.
And we see that with OJ and Nicole. She did leave.
Absolutely.
And then
Absolutely.
she moved out. She got her own place. He
stalked her.
Yes.
He spied on her.
Yeah.
He threatened her and she went back.
Yes. Well, and the other thing about that, before she went back, he fronted the money for that place she got. So that's the other piece, right? Like, finances can keep victims stuck. And I think for Nicole, that could have been a component of it. I know she has family that really cared about her and would have probably taken her in. But I mean, a lot of things can keep people coming back. But for Nicole and OJ specifically, she went back and she literally said to one of her friends, he's been much better. He's treating me better. And she went back. And that was the last time she did go back to him. Before she died. So then she left, but then she left and then died. They divorced and then she died.
And sometimes victims go back because they have a sixth sense that they'll be killed.
Yep.
And we're actually trained as professionals not to coach them out of that. If they really are that afraid, we have to work with them over a longer period of time to get resources in order. We never pressure. Because victims sometimes know better how to keep themselves alive.
Yep.
And sometimes that involves staying longer than we think is reasonable.
Yep.
Yeah. So I think that's such a good question. And send us your questions because, again, Nat and I are both providers. We've been doing this work for a long time. We may not always know exactly what you want to hear. We may be nerding out on something that isn't as interesting. for the rest of y'all.
Yep. Yes. Okay, Janine, where do we want to start?
Well, I was going to ask if you had anything more. We talked a little bit about the glove. If it doesn't fit, you must acquit. We talked about how the trial took on this whole other dynamic. We talked, I mean, I said Mark Furman's an ass, which I stand by. But we didn't go into a lot of details about it. But you can watch that in the documentary, the things that he said.
Yeah.
He said some really horrific things. And I actually think Mark Furman is a big part of why we didn't get justice for Nicole Brown Simpson.
Yeah.
Fred Goldman, in my humble opinion. Again, he was acquitted, so maybe he didn't do it. He wrote a book that said if I did it, but maybe he didn't do it.
Yeah, well, we all know who did it. I still wish on his deathbed that he said,
I know.
World, I did it. I wish. Like that would have been, here's the thing.
I get
it. Would have been an epic way to go out. Epic.
It's so true. It's so true. And we've had clients in the past who have admitted things like when they're finally done with a process where they'll say something, just get it off their chest finally. And it kind of scratches an itch for both people. It's like, I kind of knew this was true, but also they kind of wanted to unburden themselves on some level as well.
Yeah.
And I really wish he had given that to all of us, but he could not.
No, he couldn't. I agree with you though on what's his name? Vermin?
He is Vermin, but his name was Mark Vermin. Okay. I'm not a fan.
Yes. I also agree that he probably had something to do with the trial going so south. And that's just a bummer because he wasn't honest about a lot of things and his thoughts and his beliefs and all the things. Like, I think if he would have looked like a total ass, but if he was honest, at least it would have given him a little bit more of an alibi to his story, right? Because then they couldn't have come back and said, dude, you lied about literally all this other stuff.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and if I'm a juror and there's a very famous Black defendant and this epic racist, right, who is like literally said horrific things, right, is the one who finds the glove. Yeah, I'm going to have questions about that. Like, I'd be giving him the hairy eyeball too. Like, I understand. And one of the things we're going to talk about when we get into the civil case, the burden of proof is so high in a criminal case. It's way higher than a civil case.
Yeah.
So the burden of proof is beyond any reasonable doubt.
Yes.
I have reasonable doubt.
Because Mark
Furman is the one who jumped the fence and found the glove.
Vermin? Okay, yes.
Vermin found it. And so that may have actually been a really big concern for some of the jurors. And then the glove doesn't go on. There's lots of reasons.
Well, yes, and
the glove didn't fit great.
The glove didn't fit because
OJ also looked surprised.
He stood up as if he won a damn trophy.
I know. He's like, oh,
like, dang, y'all, look at this going back.
Oh my God, this couldn't have gone better for me.
Yeah, this doesn't fit. And he had like a plastic glove on, and there's speculation that he wasn't taking his blood pressure medicine or whatever medication,
arthritis medication,
so his hands would swell. Like I don't know.
Listen, I took an extra blood pressure pill the other day, and I thought I was going to have to cut my ring off. This is real.
See,
you can actually manipulate some of these things.
You can.
But because
I could Janine, I could stand in the heat for 10 minutes and my fingers are swollen. Yep. Little sausages.
Absolutely. I know, it's real. It is so real. You and I both wear the Aura rings, which, by the way, Aura, please sponsor us.
Yes.
But who was it who had to get one cut off? LeBron James? One of the basketball players.
Oh, God.
He had to go to the ER and get it cut off because it was his fingers had swollen. Had swelled up and he couldn't get it off.
That's terrifying.
I know, isn't it? They can do that though. It's okay.
I know, but then you ruin your.
They have tools. They can save you from yourself.
Thank God.
You get a little overzealous shoving a ring on.
Oh my gosh.
They can help you.
Yes. So
Anyway.
I think there was a lot of manipulation to that. Honestly, if he didn't have a plastic glove on underneath, it honestly probably would have fit better.
Yeah, probably.
I just think I just think he's full of it, but here we are.
Well, so basically he's acquitted. OJ is fist pumping in the courtroom. He's like,
I won.
oh my gosh, I won. Everybody else is like, not everybody, because there were a lot of people who celebrated that he was acquitted. I wonder, this far removed, how many of those people think he did it. I think in the documentary we watched, some of the jurors really do think he did it.
Yes.
And some of them say explicitly it was payback for Rodney King. So I don't know. We'll never know. We weren't on the jury. We're not in their brains.
Yeah.
We don't know. But he gets off.
Yes.
Yep. And then
living a different best life.
Well, yes and no, because he has to deal with Ron Goldman's father.
Right.
Genuine badass.
Yeah.
With a grudge that makes mine look so small.
Yes.
I mean, this man,
he was out for it. I think
devoted his life to ruining O.J. Simpson, and I get it.
Well, and Nicole's family just kind of wanted to drop it. I think
they were kind of done.
And they had custody of their kids for quite a time. And so I think they just wanted all of it to be done for the protection of them, for their own closure. But yeah, Goldman's dad was a powerhouse.
Oh, yes. Well, and it's interesting you bring up the kids, because I saw an interview with Nicole's sisters and mother, I think with Oprah. And basically they were asked, do you believe he killed Nicole? And they said, we don't answer that. And I'm thinking, what? Like, this is your moment. But they were thinking about the kids. And the really crappy thing is Simpson then fought for custody and took the kids. They moved to Florida. That's really sucky. It's like, hey, thanks for watching my kids during my murder case. I'm good now.
Yeah, of your family member.
I would lose my mind. But I think they tried to preserve the kids' lives.
I could be wrong, but I didn't watch the whole thing, so I can't even necessarily quote it or reference it, but I feel like I briefly saw a quick thing on the sisters more recently. Both sisters, where they do say they think he did it. And one of them wrote a book about domestic violence.
Well, and the kids are much older now. So I think it was more right after when the kids were little. I think they were trying to just be mellow.
Yeah.
If you or someone you know is struggling in a domestic violence relationship, call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233 or text BEGIN to 88788. Okay, so as we start talking about the civil case, couple of things that are worth mentioning. Beyond reasonable doubt is the threshold for a criminal case. So that means you have to really, really, really prove somebody did something. That's the innocent until proven guilty. That benchmark is high because, people's lives are on the line and all of that. That matters a lot. So in civil cases, it's preponderance of the evidence, which means basically you have to be 51% sure. You have to be just a little more sure that it happened than that it didn't happen in order to have something go in your favor. So, and it still was a jury, but as they're hearing the evidence, it's going through a little bit of a different filter. So instead of trying to find holes, they're looking at the evidence and going, which side feels a little more true? What's the quality of the evidence? Not even the quantity. What's the quality of the evidence, right? So in that case, I don't even think this was hard for the Goldman's team. And the Simpsons and the Goldman family were involved in this civil case. It was not just Ron Goldman's family. So both families were involved. What they found is that Simpson was responsible for her death, which is a wrongful death suit, essentially. So Goldman's win this case, and the judgment was $33.5 million. Now, if you've ever been involved in a lawsuit, of any kind. You can be sued for literally any reason. It doesn't mean the person's going to win. And even if you do win, it doesn't mean you'll ever see any money. People can hide their assets, they can do all kinds of things.
Yes.
At the time, some of his things were taken. Some of his things were taken, is sold, auctioned, all the things, but not much. They did not see much of that money.
Right.
One of the things I noted was his Heisman, because this is going to come up again later.
Yes.
His Heisman, you know, the picture of him and his Heisman that he was clutching, we're guessing.
Yes.
While he was riding around in the Bronco with the unloaded gun to his chin. This is all my speculation.
Yes.
That got auctioned off for $230,000. So Heisman gone. Some of the valuables gone. The family sees a little bit of that money. One of the things to consider with these civil cases is you're looking at somebody's income across their whole lifespan. Would they have helped their parents? Would they have, all the things that you just robbed this person of a whole life, right? And in the case of Nicole, robbed their children of a mother.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not to mention somebody's sister, daughter, blah, 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 on and on, right?
Yep.
So anyway, he loses that case. He's in no hurry to pay the money, right? And Ron Goldman's dad just won't quit. He's not going to quit. So years later, okay, so this was like 95, 96 when the civil stuff went down. It went down pretty quickly.
Right.
After the criminal case. And a lot of the evidence that wasn't allowed in the criminal case for various reasons, because it all got so crazy with all the attorneys, was able to be shared in the civil case. So it was like it was a open and shut case. Like, I don't think the civil case was super complicated.
No.
So what happened shortly after that is Simpson goes, I'm gonna write a book. I'm gonna write a book. And you know what I'm gonna call the book, Nat? If I Did It.
Right. Which is insane.
Makes total sense.
Here's
right?
the thing.
This guy.
Genuine narcissist.
Yes.
Genuine.
Yes. Genuine textbook
narcissist.
Unbelievable narcissism.
Yes.
We are not treating him. We are not his treating clinicians. Also,
he's dead.
Very strong narcissistic vibes. Right?
Here's the thing. I feel like, I guess we can't necessarily quote unquote diagnose him. However, if we were not actual therapists, everyone's been saying that. I watched a thing
100%.
by
100%.
Joe Rogan.
Rogan.
He's funny. he and this other comedian, man, I can't remember his name, but he's funny as heck too, were talking about this. And they literally just sit there and do the same thing. They call him a narcissist. So here's a
100%.
Narcissistic tendencies textbook tendency.
100%. So if you're curious and you want to be a little armchair therapist, look up the criteria for narcissism and start checking them off.
You can literally Google it.
You can Google it. It's on there. The criteria is on there. Okay, so Simpson is like probably needing money because, again, he went back to Brentwood. Nobody wants to be his friend. He is friendless.
Right.
His own attorneys backed off of him. And because, they knew he did it. And some of them have even said that, to a degree since all of this. So this book, there's rumblings of this book, right? The whole idea of this book comes around. And Ron Goldman's dad is like, hang on a minute. If he's going to get any money from this book, I'm taking his money. And this is what I love. This feels like justice a little bit to me. Now, I can respect that Nicole's family didn't want this to happen. They didn't want the book to be published. There was outrage. So big announcement, this book is coming out, and then everyone freaks out, and it was like, oh, just kidding. But not Ron Goldman's dad. He's like, oh, there will be a book because I'm going to own OJ forever, right? So Ron Goldman's dad gets involved and basically challenges how this book should be released, takes it over, and decides to make some changes to the book and accept all of the royalties from the book, including what OJ was paid.
Spicy.
Yes. So then the title changed, and you can actually see if you Google it, you can see the two different covers. So in one cover, it's pretty clearly if I did it, and there's a picture of him, and it's supposed to be just sort of like kind of fantastical and like attention grabbing because he was trying to make money.
Mhm.
When the Goldman family took over, literally it's like crime scene tape. It says, I did it in giant red letters. And then if is tiny in the eye, in the red eye. It's just, so it looks like I did it. Confessions of the killer.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine you're OJ and you're just bebopping along and you decide to write a book because, why wouldn't everybody want to read about how I might have done this if I did it? Which is so insulting. It's unbelievable. And you run smack dab into Ron Goldman's dad. And he's like, psych, I'm going to take your book. I'm going to take your money. And I'm going to change how this all goes down.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. So that is what he did. So they did release the book with some changes, as you can imagine. The bottom line in the book that was really, really crazy to me is Simpson really did put forth a narrative to how this could have hypothetically happened. And when he was interviewed about it, and some of these interviews got buried but have been brought back up, he starts talking in like first person present tense. And so when he gets pushed on it, he's like, well, yeah, I mean, hypothetically. And it's like, dude, you were just literally talking about like how this happened. Like he would slip in and out of it. So one of the things he put forth in the book, I don't think this is true, but this is something he put forth, that there was a hypothetical scenario in which he had an unwilling accomplice named Charlie who urged him not to engage with Nicole.
What?
And that and that Simpson planned to scare the shit out of Nicole. That was his whole plan. Simpson ignored Charlie,
Uh-huh.
right? Who told him not to do this, went to the condo anyway, ran into and confronted Ron Goldman. He said Nicole fell and hit her head on the concrete, hypothetically.
Okay.
And Goldman crouched in a karate pose. And then, quote, something went horribly wrong. And I know what happened, but I can't tell you how. He writes that he regained consciousness later with no memory of the actual act of the murder. That's what he put in the book.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Oh, and I want to say too, what he said about the knife was that maybe Nicole had come out with the knife.
Mm.
I think that was how the knife got involved, was like Nicole had come out with the knife. And then it got involved in the scuffle.
Huh.
So the books get recalled. It was supposed to get released November 30th. They all get recalled. All 400,000 printed copies were pulped, basically shredded. Like,
Wow.
gone, except for one. And that one book was locked away in a vault at News Corporation, which was a company at the time. And then later on eBay, it sold for over $250,000. And it was James Wolcott of Vanity Fair who got a pristine hard copy of the book for a review that was published in January of 2007. So really, I mean, they just like destroyed it.
Wow.
They destroyed it except for that one copy.
Wow.
Right? So then when they put their spin on it, they published it again. And Judith Regan was an editor and interviewed him in a planned Fox special. And she came forward and said, this is a historic case, and I consider this his confession.
Dang.
And Reagan said to Simpson, you wrote, I have never seen so much blood in my life. And Simpson said, I don't think any two people could be murdered without everybody being covered in blood.
Wow.
So he kind of did this like first person kind of a thing,
Mm-hmm.
right? So with the book was going to come out. They printed some copies. They pull it back. Ron Goldman's dad goes ballistic. He's like, if anybody is going to profit from this, it should be us because we haven't seen it much of our 33.5 million.
Mm-hmm.
And Nicole's family really took probably even bigger issue. They didn't want the book published in any form.
Mm-hmm.
OJ was going to do an interview around that same time. And what really upset Nicole's family, Nicole Brown's family, was the fact that this particular interview was going to be on, mainstream media, on Fox, and he was going to get to kind of talk about the killings with this, hypothetical narrative of how it happened. And it was just so insulting and upsetting.
Yeah.
So then Fox tried to keep them quiet, the Brown family and the Goldman family, to keep them quiet, keep them from criticizing the project and whatever, and offered them tons of money.
What?
Like hush money to not go against this project because this was going to be super lucrative for the network.
Mm-hmm.
And the publishers too have a vested interest in this book coming out, right? So they're actually offering to pay the families off. And both families, Goldman and the Nicole Brown's family, both were very upset by this and refused to be bought. They were like, we're going to have an opinion about this.
Yeah.
But those families got sideways about the book.
I heard a little bit about that.
This is where they got especially sideways.
Mm-hmm.
Because Nicole's family did not want this book published, period.
Mm-hmm.
And Goldman's like, hey, he wrote the book, so let's actually kind of hold him accountable. And the woman who interviewed Simpson, because they actually did the interview, the issue was whether or not to publish it. And you actually can see it now. They have it.
Dang.
13 years later, they aired sections of it for the first time ever.
Wow.
But you can find it online. But the person who interviewed him really thought it was a confession. That was kind of the scuttlebutt with the book. So it doesn't say exactly how much money the Goldmans ended up getting, but basically a California judge ordered that the rights to publish the book be auctioned off and the proceeds go to Goldman. Well, then the book publisher files for bankruptcy. Fred Goldman will not be denied. He pursued the matter to the bankruptcy court, and a federal judge ruled that he could pursue the publishing rights. So he took it all the way up to a federal judge to get the rights to the book. And one of the things was that the Goldmans had to pay 10% of the first $4 million to a court-appointed trustee, with most of that money going to the Brown family. And then the Brown family kind of fought back and said they should get a bigger share of the proceeds. So this is when those two families start fighting. So the Brown family didn't want it published. And then they're like, well, if they're going to publish it anyway, we should get a fair share of the profit. So basically, the version of the book was published by a different publishing house then, right? And it was released. This is so wild. The dates. Sometimes the universe, God, whatever you believe in, does really interesting things.
Right.
So on September 13th, 2007, this new version of the book was released. That is the same day that Simpson participated in an armed robbery. Literally the same day.
Oh,
boom.
My gosh.
Is that not wild?
That is.
And the interviews came out in 2018. So if you want to try to find that specific interview, you can find it.
Okay.
It was out in 2018, and I don't remember where it came out, but you can Google it and find it. Isn't that insane?
That is crazy.
So that's the book. If I Did It, Confessions of the Killer.
That is crazy.
Isn't that crazy? And then Simpson, basically the story that they tried to go with was that Simpson's daughter actually recommended it. He was trying to take care of his kids financially.
Okay.
That's the story. The problem is the ghostwriter, the person who actually wrote the book with Simpson, number one, believes he's guilty. And number two, said that Simpson was completely involved in it and reported all of the things.
Dang.
So that's also looking fairly guilty there, OJ.
Yes.
Fairly guilty.
Yes. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So what do you think of that? Because you didn't know all of that.
I didn't know. I knew like teeny tiny little snips of it. I knew that the Goldmans and the Browns had a. I didn't know that they were beefing. I knew that the Goldmans wanted to see more justice than the Browns after everything
Mm-hmm.
happened because the Browns just wanted it to end and the closure and they had the kids and all that stuff.
They had the kids, and they were, again, there was a little bit of a custody kerfuffle going on there too. So I
Yeah.
think the Browns just had more to, I shouldn't say more, not more. The Browns had some different things going on,
Yes. And
additional pieces they were trying to sort through.
exactly. That involved other individuals other than Nicole, whereas the Goldmans
Yes.
they were mainly focused on their son.
Yes.
So, yeah, that's all really wild. I did not know it was the same day that he had that burglary charge.
Oh, yeah. So let me lay that one out for you briefly.
Yes.
Okay. You ready?
Yes.
Hold on to your butt.
Okay.
Okay. So the day
Uh-huh.
that the book comes out, right?
Mm-hmm.
Simpson and a group of men entered a room in the Palace Station Hotel in Las Vegas, confronted a sports memorabilia dealer at gunpoint,
Uh-huh.
and robbed him.
Well, and from what I saw, it was just one human who had a gun. It wasn't OJ.
I'm pretty sure OJ had a gun.
Oh,
Hang on, let
really?
me check.
Okay, maybe I misread that.
Let me check.
Because I thought it was someone, maybe it was OJ, but yeah.
I don't know that OJ was carrying the gun, but one of them had a gun for sure, at least one.
Oh, for sure. One of them had a gun. I don't think it was OJ. What I know about that is it turned into a bigger situation than what most of them planned.
Well, let me go back. Okay. So on September 13th, 2007, a group of men led by Simpson entered a room in the Palace Station Hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada, and they held up, essentially, at gunpoint,
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Fromong, who was a sports memorabilia dealer.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, what happened, this is just like, take a deep breath
Mm-hmm.
and get ready for story time. This was an epic setup and just a truly stupid situation. And one of the things that's interesting when you really study psychopathy, and I'm not saying OJ is a psychopath. I'm not saying he's a psychopath.
Right.
So one of the things that goes with impulsivity is very poor planning.
Yes.
And all of OJ's stuff is impulsive.
Yeah.
The murders were impulsive, overkill, all the things, right?
Everything.
But even this one that he was actually convicted of.
Yep.
So we're just going to focus on this one because
Yep.
he was technically acquitted of the other, okay?
Yep.
So there was a memorabilia dealer named Alfred Beardsley who contacted a man named Tom Riccio, another memorabilia dealer, regarding a trove of O.J. Simpson items that Beardsley had in Las Vegas. Riccio told Simpson about it. So Simpson and Riccio devised this plan to go confront the dealers and get this stuff back. So OJ's like, hey, I'm going to Vegas anyway.
Right.
How about an armed robbery on the way? Right? He was going there for a wedding.
Yes.
This is literally how impulsive this was.
Yes. Yes.
Right? He recruited some wedding guests to come along with him.
Oh my goodness. I didn't realize there were wedding guests.
Yes, wedding guests. He's like, hey, y'all, I'm coming out for a wedding. Let's do an armed robbery.
Right.
I'll get away with it. I get away with everything. I'm OJ. The robbery was planned at the Palms Casino Resort. And basically, Bruce Fromong and a friend, who was a friend of Simpson's, met with Beardsley and Riccio in room 1203 at the Palace Station, which is a room that Riccio rented. So Riccio's kind of setting this up. He rented the room. Beardsley reached out to Fromong, who's the one who had all of the OJ stuff, and basically said, hey, I've got a client that wants to buy a bunch of this stuff.
Right.
Fromong didn't know the client was OJ.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, he probably wouldn't have met with him, given Simpson's track record and the fact that it's his stuff.
Yes.
Riccio had Beardsley and Fromong move all the items into the room and spread it on the bed to create a display. So while this is happening, after a pre-wedding dinner, Simpson and 5 accomplices, again, wedding guests, drove to the Palace Station where they met up with Riccio in the lobby and they go up to the room. Okay. OJ is the one who ordered his group, this group of people that he's leading, which you can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
And fortunately, someone recorded, which I'll get to in a minute.
Yeah.
Simpson ordered the group to not allow anyone to leave. Okay. Anyone to leave.
Mm-hmm.
So they're arguing about where the memorabilia came from. During the confrontation, one of the accomplices, Michael McClinton, threatened Ramon with a .45 pistol. So threatened him with a gun.
Right.
And then Simpson's group stuffs all the stuff and some extra stuff. So there were some extra baseballs, Joe Montana stuff, like just different things.
Right.
Into pillowcases. And then they just go back to the Palms Casino. And the whole thing lasts about 6 minutes. 6 minutes, in and out.
That is so wild.
It's crazy. So one of the things that's really interesting about this is McClinton, remember, this is the guy who had the pistol.
Mm-hmm.
So he actually recorded. He recorded when they were in the hallway after all of this happened. And Simpson was asking McClinton if he had pulled out the piece, meaning the gun. And you can hear the participants laughing at a sushi restaurant about this 6-minute encounter, this robbery.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. So there's literally a recording of this.
Right.
And then Riccio, because we're dealing with like quality folks here, right?
Right.
He's an auction owner and a convicted felon who's the one who told Simpson about the stuff. Sold the tape to TMZ for $150,000.
Right. I remember seeing that.
Right. And he was also paid an additional $60,000 by television stations for appearances, etc.
Yes. That's so funny.
Yep.
He was like, let me participate in this chaos, and then I'm going to sell the chaos.
So now they're all convicted felons because they all went down. Right. Okay. Bruce Framong.
Did he get arrested?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Oh, I'm going to get to
it. Okay.
So Bruce Framong, the one who was sort of the innocent party, although all of this is pretty shady.
Sure.
Eventually gets convicted of shoplifting anyway. So all criminals, everybody ends up in trouble. All these people in different ways. Okay. So Simpson, this is just the dates with OJ. It's like the movie Final Destination. Like it's coming for him. Like the pieces are just falling into place.
Yes.
So he does the robbery on the night of September 13th, 2007. 3 days later, on September 16th, he was arrested and held without bail. He admitted taking the items, but said they had been stolen from him, which is not entirely true.
Right.
Actually, many of them had been auctioned and then had been stolen somewhere down the pipe, but they weren't necessarily stolen from him.
Right.
But he denied breaking into the room. He also denied that he or the people with him carried weapons. On October 3rd, 2008, exactly 13 years after he was acquitted of the murders, 13 years to the day, he was found guilty on all 12 charges for this incident. And he was arrested and taken immediately into the detention center.
Yes.
And in December, he was sentenced to 33 years in prison with eligibility for parole at 9 years, which he did get.
Yeah.
Got parole right at 9 years.
Which there was speculation that the judge picked 33 years and number 33 related to the original case.
Sure.
Which the judge denied that there was any correlation to that. But
it looks interesting.
Yeah, a lot of people speculated that it was related.
So that's fast. So he finally gets some just deserved in some way. It is not what should have happened all those years ago, in my humble opinion.
Right.
But it was something.
Right.
I find this interesting for so many reasons. One of the defenses of Simpson's was, well, this was all my stuff initially anyway.
Right. He was like, I was just going to take it back.
Which is a distortion of epic proportions, right?
Quite funny.
Because it would still be your stuff, sir, if you
Yeah.
had not,
Yeah.
been found to have wrongfully caused the death of two people, and you now owe them $33.5 million. That's why you don't own anymore.
Right.
So one interesting thing that I want to point out in terms of the money and the dates and all of that, we are coming up on 30 years
Mm-hmm.
to the day of the killings.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important to kind of recognize because
Mm-hmm.
OJ died, a couple weeks ago,
Well, like, yeah, a little over a month ago.
month ago,
Yeah.
pretty close to that 30 years. And when you think about what those 30 years look like for Brown and Goldman's
Mm-hmm.
families,
Yeah.
right? And I'm sure Fred Goldman, if he's still alive, which I don't actually know if he's still alive, I think he is probably jumping up and down on OJ's grave. Like,
Yeah.
the man is going to just harbor this every day of his whole life.
Mm-hmm.
So it cost him dearly
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah.
So right before we hopped on, I was looking at an ESPN article, and now they're sorting through his estate. So here's the
Dang.
thing. That 33.5 million is going to come due. It's still due.
Yeah.
So technically, they're ahead of other debtors to get some of that money.
That's good.
It is good. Also, his children, there's other people in line for money, but
Mm-hmm.
they have a right to his estate,
Mm-hmm.
some of his estate, and even his property went into a trust.
Mm-hmm.
And Simpson's attorney has a personal vendetta with Goldman over the book.
Oh, wow.
So
Still.
those two hate each other.
Yeah.
Hate each other. So one of the things I read is that attorney has a vested interest in protecting Simpson even after his death.
Dang.
Which is wild because that's how he recruited people. Like,
Mm-hmm.
Simpson has, and I think we're going to get into this because you're going to talk more about his later years, but the psychology of O.J. Simpson is charismatic,
Mm-hmm.
narcissistic, manipulative,
Mm-hmm.
and he could just garner sympathy and support
Mm-hmm.
pretty easily
Mm-hmm.
from people.
Yep.
I'm not surprised he found 5-6 people to go commit an armed robbery out of nowhere.
From a wedding.
From a wedding. Let's just take a little,
Yeah.
detour and whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm also not surprised that even his attorney wants to stand up for him after his death because he probably had been recruited all these years by OJ.
Yeah. Well, honestly, Janine, it lines up with a lot of how he lived his life after the trial, the murder case trial. I specifically remember in that documentary that we've referred to many times on Netflix, he goes and meets, I forget the woman's name, but it's like for some podcast or some radio show or I think it's a radio show. And she even says, she's like, I wanted to not like you, and I like you.
Oh,
So
so
he
annoying.
was just yes, before and after could just kind of schmooze his way through.
Mm-hmm.
Really whatever. However, what was really named in that documentary is how much his social group switched.
Yes.
So his social group switched from, and we already named this early on, right? He was like, he had no color is what he said, right? He's just OJ.
Mm-hmm.
He's not black or white.
I'm not black,
OJ.
I'm not white, I'm OJ.
Yes. No pigment to his skin.
Mm-hmm.
So he then adopted more of a mindset of individuals he grew up with. Individuals who were in the projects, primarily the Black community.
Mm-hmm.
And because a lot of the white community, and again, this goes with the whole thing, and that was happening in the 90s. A lot of the white community he was around just disowned him as a human in their life.
100%. He was out of Brentwood.
Yeah.
He really thought he would just go back to his mansion and he would still be playing golf with the people he played golf with before.
Yeah.
They want nothing to do with him. He was a pariah.
Yeah. So he still played golf. It was just with a different crowd. It was with individuals that more in line with who he grew up with in the projects.
Yeah. And I wonder if some of that was genuine. Like, I could see someone like OJ possibly taking a step back after seeing how abandoned he was by everybody else. Because he doesn't have a lot of self-awareness. So he's not going to show up to his friends and go, oh my gosh, y'all been through the ringer with me. This was so scary. Like he's just going to come back. He's OJ. And I could see him feeling really abandoned by those people.
I don't think I don't know. I don't know. I think that gives him too much credit.
I don't know. I mean, I think the switch was necessary.
Yeah.
Because he didn't have any people.
Yeah.
So from a narcissist perspective, he had no puppets. There were no more puppets.
Sure.
The puppets were gone.
Sure.
So he had to go find new puppets.
Yeah.
Or at least new people.
Yeah.
Right? So I see that part.
Yeah. So the reason why I think that's giving him too much credit is because I could just see him thinking, okay, they don't have my back. I'll go find some other people who have my back. And
I think that's totally possible. There may not have been much feeling around it.
exactly. And in line with what even some of the jurors said, that it was payback for
Rodney King.
Yes, that it was payback for Rodney King. I could see, right, like a lot of the individuals that he started to hang out with during that case, or like at least people that he recruited, having that mindset too. Right? I don't know. It's just speculation.
Well, definitely the Black community rallied around him and the white community did not.
Absolutely.
So that is true.
So he shifts his whole friend group, his community. He totally shifts it. And Janine, he comes out. I don't know if you know this. It's horrific. He comes out with some of his buddies, his new buddies, with this music video. Have you heard about that?
No. Literally, the minute you started talking, I was like, oh, please don't let it be music because I get the cringy feeling when anyone does music.
Oh, so they show a teeny bit of this in that documentary on Netflix. I had to look it up because it's so bad. So they show a little bit. It's like we can't even play it here. So you guys just go YouTube it if you really want to see it. But just know there's nudity. There's
Wait, no. Wait. It's not just a music video. It has nudity and stuff.
Correct.
What is it about?
Well, it's called.
Oh no.
Well, you know how they used to call him the juice?
Yeah.
Or juice or whatever?
Yes.
It's called Get Juiced. I know I can't.
Ew.
I know I cannot.
Ew.
Oh, it's so terrible.
I don't even know what it means, but ew.
Yeah, it's rough. Janine, I'll send you the link for it. It's crazy.
I'm gonna watch it before bed.
I was gonna say you have to now.
This is horrific.
You and Honey can watch it. Honey's the retriever, our mascot. Yeah, so he starts doing that. He's hanging out with
Is it like rap? Like what kind of music?
It's just terrible. It's terrible. He has created a new genre and it's just called terrible music.
It's like a group?
No. Well, I'll send it to you.
Okay, have you seen, this is a total tangent, but have you seen JoJo Siwa or whatever?
No.
She's getting roasted on the internet. She's like, I don't even know how old, maybe 20.
Okay.
She was on Dance Moms and she was like this little dancer and she had this huge influencer career, okay? All of a sudden she's a bad girl. So she literally says in a thing, she's like, I invented gay pop. And I'm like, oh, honey.
Yes, I have seen her.
Oh my gosh, invented a genre. So you're telling me that OJ invented a genre, not unlike JoJo.
Correct.
What's the genre if you had to name it? Did he name it, first of all? And if he didn't, I want to know what you would name it.
Well, he didn't name it. I'm just saying he did it because the music video and song is so bad. I would say the name would be
Murderer Pop.
Yeah, I was gonna say shit you listen to in an OJ Bronco. I don't know.
Stuff only your mama loves.
Not even that.
Not even that.
It's so bad. Okay, so there's nudity. It's terrible. Don't watch it with kids.
Is it about women? Is it about like having sex with women?
No,
Like, what is
it's
it
just
about?
about him. It makes zero sense.
But what's with the naked
I
women?
don't, just that he's this player now and that he's living this gangster life. It's,
I do not get the sense that OJ had a line of women wanting to hook up with him
no, but he did.
after,
So
like he did before.
he even talks about it. Yes, no, he says he has more women now than he did before.
Oh, I'm sure he says that.
Yes. I don't know. I don't know. It's a different crowd he's got
I think
going
it's
on.
slim pickings. I don't think it's the same line
It's not.
of people,
It's not.
right?
It's very different.
Which reminds me, we have to do we've had 2 requests to do women who fall in love with men who are in prison become pen
Yes.
pals with people in prison. Okay, we
Yes.
just put that in the
Yes,
back
yes,
burner.
yes, yes, yes.
We have to do that.
So anyway, so he says that he's luckier with women now than he's ever been. But yes, very different women, not like very wealthy. They're not in Hollywood, right? They're not the women he was used to going after. So has this music video called Get Juiced. Literally, if you watch it, that's the type of life he was living.
Ew.
Lots of alcohol, lots of drugs, and he meets this woman named Christy Prody,
Okay.
and she is 30 years younger than him at this time.
Well, that just tracks. How old was he then?
Oh gosh, he met her in 1995. So it was the year after Nicole died.
Oh,
And get this.
poor little lamb.
But get this.
That's who your new boyfriend is? Like, he just
No.
murdered.
Get this. They met at the Brentwood estate because at that time it was kind of a tourist attraction.
I kind of remember that.
Yes.
Yeah.
So they meet there. He's at the estate and she's there to go see it. And he comes up to her.
She's on a tour?
I don't know about a tour, but she's there visiting the estate that this all happened at. And he meets her there. Like he's there and whatever. So he approaches her, and the rest is history. They dated for 13 years. So during this time, if you Google her, she's blonde, she's white and blonde, and kind of resembles Nicole.
Oh, no.
So throughout their time together, he started getting her to dress more like Nicole. He had her get breast implants to, I think, look more like Nicole in her body type.
How are the alarm bells not going on for this girl?
It's the charm. It's the charm.
But he is dressing her up like his favorite murder victim.
Literally.
That's so alarming.
I know. So, well, and it kind of speaks to the obsession that sometimes happens in domestic violence cases.
That's true.
Right? So he's still
obsessed. He still wants Nicole.
Yes, even dead. He not dead, Nicole, dead OJ, right? Even while he's dead, I'm sure he's like fiending for her. So he was still obsessed after Nicole died. He, the whole 9 yards. He would talk about with I forget what she was to him, but he treated her like a psychologist or a therapist, but he would tell her like, do you think I loved her too much? Like just crazy stuff. So
he's treating her like his own personal
No. Sorry.
Nicole.
No. So that was someone else that he said that to.
But who are you talking about, the woman he dated?
So when I said he said, did I love her too much? That was someone different. That was someone that he met during the trial. Or right after the trial. It was like some chick that he met.
Romantic connection.
No.
Just somebody he met.
Yes, it was some professional. I don't know what her profession was, but he kind of treated her like a therapist and
But that's not the woman who was 30 years younger.
Correct.
Who he tries to turn into Nicole.
Correct. I'm just making the point that he was still obsessed with her.
Still talking about her.
Yes.
I'm with you.
So meets Christy. She's 30 years younger. Meets her at his old home where he murdered his ex-wife and Ron, and they start a relationship, and they're together for 13 years. So the cops did get called 4 times, is what it said, is what it was reported.
Oh no.
One of the times it was him, and the police, it's just like a 2-second, so I'm not even going to play it for everyone. It's a 2-second recording, and he's just basically like, I am trying to get this woman to rehab. She has been high for numerous days or something like that. So it's not even a call to say, from what was mentioned in what I heard, to say, hey, she's abusing me. So it's just a call basically to say she's high as a kite and I'm trying to get her to go to rehab. He calls the cops to tell them that, which is weird because I'm like, what are they going to do about that?
Also, he's just trying to establish a narrative.
Oh, exactly. So the cops are called other times. She does an interview, a very quick interview, talking about the abuse she experienced from him. So the abuse didn't stop after Nicole. It continued. And he would tell her things. So in the interview, they asked her, do you think he did it? And she said, at the beginning, I didn't want to believe it, but he would tell her things that only the killer would know. So that's really interesting. She was with him during that whole trial with the burglary charge.
Okay.
So she stayed with him through all that. And then they broke up while he was in prison. She, for a long time, was really scared he'd get out. This was before he got out, this interview. So she even says, I don't think he'll get out. And then he did.
You said she was afraid he'd get out?
At the very beginning, she was scared he would get out. But then during this interview, she said that. She said, at the beginning of all this, I thought he would get out and I was scared. But then it was long enough, I guess, after he was arrested that this interview happened. And she was like, I just don't think he's going to get out. Yeah. So really interesting. Like I said, if you look her up, there's a resemblance of Nicole with her.
Do you get the sense that she finally felt safe enough to leave him when he was in prison?
Yeah, because she didn't think he was getting out.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But even while with her, right, continued the cheating, continued all of that stuff. And his lifestyle actually seemed to get more erratic than it was before.
Well, especially if drugs were involved, that would make sense. Like partying, drugs, whatever.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Well, and they they talked about that. Obviously, there's a lot of alcohol, a lot of cocaine. Those were the 2 main things that they were using. That's what was really hard for Christy to stop using. That was like her main thing.
Yeah.
So she did go to rehab and all of that. His life continued to get more chaotic until he got arrested. So he gets arrested. He's in prison. He is a model prisoner.
Oh, I read that too.
Model citizen in the prison system. He was like starting Bible study groups with the men. I'm like, who are you?
That kind of tracks with the narcissism piece too.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming full circle. I'm making it right. I mean, that's why he got off I
doubt it was that he's making changes though. I bet it was like, you know what? If I'm here, I might as well just take care of people and, whatever.
Make everyone love me.
Make everyone love me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need them to see that I am the good guy.
100%.
In prison, he lived but yeah. So model citizen in prison, living a pretty chaotic lifestyle before he went to prison. After he got out, he was on the older side at that point. So he slowed down from what it looked like a little more, stayed a little more low key, not as much in the limelight, but still very much in denial. You mentioned in part 1 how he couldn't even, come to terms with the fact that he was dying.
No.
Right? Like denied basically the fact that he was super sick. He said, I'm doing well, I'm doing really good. It was like weeks later that he died after that last interview.
It's interesting because I've known a couple and I'm not talking clients, I'm talking people I know, like
Right.
friends and family know. A couple people who have some pretty significant narcissistic traits, probably clinical,
Yeah.
and none of them did well with death. A couple of them have passed away, and I've
Hmm.
been pretty close in when they've died.
Hmm.
They have not navigated that very well at all
Hmm.
because it's a control thing, it's a vulnerability thing. It's very hard for people with that kind of personality makeup. It's hard for anybody,
Yeah.
right? It's not like anybody thinks death is so easy.
Yeah.
But it just seems to be really hard for people who are preoccupied with control, and they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to like have conversations with people about what it's actually like.
No. Yeah, he was literally said he's doing great
I'm
in
great.
his last
Life's great.
interview. So OJ, that's all I got on his afterlife
Mhm.
from the murder
His
charges.
afterlife. Well, we don't know what his
I
afterlife
mean,
is, but
his redeeming life after he did not get charged for 2 murders.
yeah, Nancy Grace has theories about his afterlife, but
I know.
but his life after, well, after acquittal, after incarceration,
No, before incarceration.
before incarceration, well, and after, because that's when he got sick and died.
Yes, but he lived a little bit more low key after.
Yeah.
So all that to be said,
Mhm.
OJ, go with maybe God.
Well, and from a heart perspective too, I found myself thinking about the kids because I was kind of humbled when I was listening to Nicole's sisters, and they were kind
Yes.
of saying, we just don't say because we're focused on the kids and we don't want to make this any harder for them.
Yeah.
I had a friend in college whose father killed her mother,
Mm.
and it was such a and killed himself. So I mean, she lost both parents and was kind of raised with another one of my friends, and I just always thought that would just be so awful,
Mm-hmm.
so awful
Mm-hmm.
and confusing. And, I forget how old the children were when the murders happened, but they were still fairly little.
Yeah.
But they had memories of their parents together, probably a lot of bad memories, but probably some good ones too.
Yeah.
And so I don't know, that sat with me a little bit heavier
Yeah.
because the case got bigger than even what happened. And what happened was terrible and big.
Mm.
But it became this big cultural case of the century situation. And there were a couple kids like smack dab in the middle of this whole thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they just lost their dad. And I do wonder, like, what are they thinking?
Mm-hmm.
What are they thinking right
And they
now?
don't want to believe that their dad was capable of doing that to their mom.
Mm-mm,
You know?
absolutely.
I mean, if I put myself in their shoes, there's no way I would want to believe that.
Well, and the other thing too that I was thinking, and this is morbid, so fair warning, this is pretty morbid, but we've talked before, and I'm sure we'll get into this more in the podcast, but homicidal ideation, suicidal ideation kind of go together
Mm-hmm.
when we're talking about people who are in domestic violence relationships. And one of the things that really strikes me about OJ is he wasn't a family annihilator. Like he didn't take out his children and her and himself.
Right.
He wasn't gonna say, well, I'm not gonna live and you're not gonna live unless we're together. He didn't do that.
Right.
He went over there, killed her.
Mm-hmm. Allegedly.
Oh, yeah, sure. Allegedly. Thank you. Allegedly killed her.
Mm-hmm.
And then took off.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally took off and kind of played it off and
Mm-hmm.
was pretty casual until he ended up in a white Bronco.
Mm-hmm.
So, it's a little bit different
Mm-hmm.
than some of the things we see even when there's a homicide.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why this case has been baffling and challenging for people all of these years, is it was just terrible. And then the same thing with the robbery.
Mm-hmm.
Impulsive but not, right? Like they did this thing and then they're out kicking it at sushi. with, just kind of bantering about this thing that happened.
Yeah.
Like, he's just not grounded in any kind of reality anyway.
No.
I don't know that he ever was.
No. No.
I don't know that he ever was.
Yeah.
Well,
in my opinion,
mm-hmm.
we have given this man enough of our attention.
That's right, OJ. This is a big one. This is probably one of the biggest ones we could have tackled.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm sure we missed 1,000 things, but I hope it's been helpful for you guys to sit with it a little bit, maybe look at some different perspectives, things maybe you didn't know. I know I didn't know some of them.
Yeah, same.
Maybe that's the root of some of the true crime crap that we see now, because I know for me I got more interested from a pretty young age, and I wonder if we're not alone in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So stay tuned. We got some good ones coming up in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And
send in questions that you have.
And stay tuned for a blooper reel that's going to drop in the next week sometime.
Yes. It's amazing.
Well, we'll see you next week.
All right. Bye, Forensic Friends.
I'm Janine.
And I'm Nat.
And as always, thanks for listening, and join us next week for more Crime, Psychology, and Heart.